What's up, YouTube? Welcome to part 2 of the Stranger Things mushroom theory. All right, in this one, we're going to go over some references. If you haven't checked out part number 1, make sure you do, because if you don't, none of this shit is going to make any fucking sense to you at all. So make sure you go check that out, because if you don't want to be confused during this whole entire video and you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you might want to go check it out. You could skip through. It's fine. It's different parts. Like, there's some history. There's the main reason of why this got started, the whole mushroom theory. There's more in there. You'll understand. But in this part, I want to quickly make this a shorter one than the first one. I want to go over some references that are in Stranger Things that will connect to our theory. So what I'm talking about is, in our mushroom theory, the main theory is that Stranger Things as a whole, or what Henry number 1 is doing, is like the process or life cycle of a mushroom. It sounds crazy, yes, but in part number 1, you would understand if you watched it. So make sure you go check that out. However, there are so many references that are associated with the mushroom or things of that sort. You know, mushrooms, plants, hallucinogenics. I know it sounds crazy, but stay with me. My point here is what I've been doing is I've been rewatching each season thoroughly, trying to at least, because I've seen it multiple times already, but I've never watched it this deeply. Basically looking at background shots, stuff like that. And the amount of references that we can connect our mushroom theory to the show, the life cycle of what Henry's doing, the life cycle of the show, everything. There is so many references. So in this one, I'm going to go over a few bigger ones that are probably more obvious that you might not ever have just put 2 and 2 together. In part 1 of the theory, when you go check that out, you would notice that Argyle was a big reference to this whole theory, because at the end of season 4, he is seen, the very last time we see him, he is seen picking a mushroom, right? And that's the last we see of Argyle. That's it. So I wanted to think of things maybe associated with Argyle right off the bat. So I've been watching 4, or I started rewatching 4. And one with Argyle is, what's his main phrase other than "what's up, my dudes" or "hey, my dudes"? He says "schmackin" all the time. Well, schmackin, mushroom, right? So I'm going to say that's number 1 reference, slightly important, but it makes sense of why he would be saying that. We have his reference with him seeing him picking the mushroom at the end, and then he says schmackin all the time. So remember Argyle while we're doing this whole mushroom theory, because he is extremely important. You wouldn't think his character is as important as it is, but he is to this theory. And if this theory is correct, this theory will lead to possible answers that we could all together figure out what we think 5 is going to be like, and we'll make a video associated like that right before season 5 comes out, and we'll all see how right or wrong we actually were. Sound fun? I think it sounds fun. All right. But anyways, back to the references. All right, you got schmackin, right? You got Argyle as a whole. I'll do more with Argyle, but I want to do other ones. Dustin, your boy Dustin. He wears all these different hats throughout the season. Season 1 and 2, he wears the same hat. And there's a reason for that, based off our theory. In part 1 and part 2 of the mushroom, it's kind of before it breaks free to the earth, right? Well, You got the white in the middle, and then you got the red on one side and the dark blue on the other. So it's like, say his hat represents what's going on in the show, say with the upside down, with Henry's mind or place that he takes his victims. So think of it like that. If we have those two places and then obviously Hawkins right in the middle, season 1 and 2, we've been getting a hint of what we were going to see in 4 the whole time. You have the upside down, the blue, you have Hawkins, the white, and now that we're at 4, we know that there's this red upside down or red area. From this point forward, actually, I want to make this clear. When I talk about the red area, I'm going to call it Henry's cap, okay? And there's a reason for that. Because if Henry's the one doing all of this or trying to do all of this, then he is the one whose mind is making this all happen, which is the other reference I want to go to, the Vecna source. The Vecna source associated with this theory can represent the source that started the mushroom, right? You see all of those like vines going right to him, okay? And he can leave it, he can go back. All right, well, when he leaves it, we don't know what's happening to that area. I mean, is it dying or who knows? Is it weak? Well, maybe we'll figure that out in 5. However, it looks and represents that area of the mushroom 100%. But back to Dustin's hats. All right, so you got season 1, season 2, same hat. Season 3, his hat changes. His like colors, he's more brightly colored with his clothes, okay, and his hat. It's green and yellow. Okay, so it's more Earth-like, right? Well, in season 3, that's when the Mind Flyer finally breaks free from the Upside Down, and you know he's in the Earth. And you understand? Yeah. So we got that right there. Season 1, season 2, season 3, all those parts of the mushrooms all connecting to Dustin's hats. Well, season 4, we see Dustin's hat change again. Well, what does it say on it? It says thinking cap with 2 red colored lightning bolts pointing right at the cap. Okay? Think about it. Think with your cap, people. The signs are right in front of our face. So we got Dustin's caps, right? His thinking caps, we're going to call them. And then Henry's red area, we're going to call Henry's cap, like the mushroom cap. All right. On to our next reference. This one's not going to make a lot of sense right off the bat because you're going to be like, what does this have to do with a mushroom? And I'm going to throw it on you first. Lover's Lake. We don't know a lot about it, right? All we know is that Patrick was unalived by Vecna, and we don't know anything about that at all. We know very little about what Patrick was seeing. We never see Patrick in Henry's cap. We don't see that at all. So those answers 100% in my mind need to be answered in 5 of why Patrick was chosen, why that happened in Lover's Lake. Well, I'll tell you why. If the mushroom theory is correct, which I am just going to start calling it correct because I think we're onto something, and I know we're onto something. I have so much more info other than these references. It's crazy. It's insane. Do I look insane? Anyways, we don't know a lot about Lover's Lake, right? However, in a part of the mushroom, when it starts to develop and it starts to spread, I think it's part 2 of the mushroom, is when, like anything, 2 parts that create something, right, need to join, and then it creates. I'm not one of those teachers that teach all those types of things about birds and bees and shit. Anyways, so with that term right there, you should get what I'm saying. Lover's lake. Okay, well, in that part of the mushroom where those 2 parts meet, they have their own parts that spread the mushroom to let it grow, right? Well, Lover's Lake, in my theory, is only one of those parts. In season 2, when they're looking at all of Will's drawings, right, which connects to part 2 of the mushroom, in season 2, they're looking at that, and Bob is finally figures out what's going on, right? And he's walking around and he's pointing out things, and he mentions Lover's Lake, and there's another lake that he mentions, and that lake is Lake Jordan. So within this theory, either Lover's Lake is both parts, and that's the main source of where, say, those vine tunnels and all that is growing, because obviously a mushroom or any plant needs water to grow. All right, well, there's a source at the very bottom, obviously, of Lover's Lake. Well, that water is not going in there, but it's obviously a source, right? Or it might be going in there, I don't remember. You would think, because I'm analyzing the show so much. Anyways, he mentions Lake Jordan, and then he talks about like rivers, but there's one thing he says, that the system, the tunnels, don't go over water, so they only can run underwater. We got to keep that as a specific fact, so I will remember this. It will be in this video. We'll use that in the future. Now that we have that, I'm thinking that Lover's Lake is either that main part, it's the part main source, and that's where it starts type thing, like where those Vine Lake tunnels are like starting, because I feel like in season 5, we have one promo photo from the next Netflix promo where they show a scene where there's a tunnel like clip, for a behind the scenes tunnel clip or something. We haven't seen those since season 2, I believe. So if we see those again, we're going to have to see where these parts connect. Okay, where these main parts are connecting, if these cracks connect to major parts, if the cracks that were made in season 4 are going to have major parts, the cracks where Vecna's victims were taken. Who knows? All right. So now that we got a few references, right? We got Schmackin, we got all of Dustin's caps, especially season 4 with the thinking cap, which I feel like is the most obvious sign connecting our theory right now. We have the Vecna source. We have Lover's Lake, possibly the other lake, Lake Jordan, which we don't see, I think, in the show. We just hear about it in season 2, but I don't think we see it at all. The last one I want to do for this video is in season 4, at the very beginning of the season, we see Dustin talking to Susie over their radios, and she is changing his grade. She's hacking into the Hawkins High School grading system, and she's about to change his grade. Well, which grade does she change? She changes his Latin grade, okay? What do I mean by Latin. What does that have to do with the mushroom? Well, if you watched part 1, again, make sure you go check that out because none of this will make any sense. In part 1, the reference from the prop mushroom that started this whole theory, thank you, Tate 100T. Shout out goes to him for helping me develop this theory or getting the film that allowed me to see the prop mushroom that developed this theory. The prop mushroom from Tate 100T's video is also, in real life, called a fly agaric mushroom, which is like the fairy tale mushroom from a bunch of different stuff that you probably have seen that I referenced in part 1. Latin is the language that the scientific name for the fly agaric mushroom is written in. Amanita muscaria. I think I said that a little less Spanish than the first time and a little more Latin. Maybe I don't speak Latin, but you know who speaks Latin? Robin, or at least Pig Latin. She also speaks Spanish, French, and Italian. And she states that in season 3, when she's trying to help Dustin and Steve figure out what the Russian interference that Dustin got is. So those references are kind of combined. So you got Dustin's Latin grade and being changed, so Latin associated with the name of the mushroom, and Robin speaks Pig Latin, which I'm assuming. I gotta stop assuming. I assumed a lot in the first one. You know, if you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. I do that a lot. Anyways, so assuming Robin speaks Pig Latin, I'm thinking she speaks Latin because of that. So if she speaks Latin, she's the one that would know Latin, being the smarter one. So if we see anything about Latin or needing to know Latin in season 5, Dustin is not going to be the answer because he's not good at it. And all Susie would be good for is changing his grade as far as we know. I don't mean that in a mean way. That sounded kind of rude. But Robin would be the answer if we need something associated with Latin in season 5. So with all that being said, we have those references. This was part 2 of Stranger Things Mushroom Theory. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you know any other references. Trust me, I have more. But let me know if you know any or have seen any that we can connect with the mushroom theory. So thank you. Thank you for coming back to DLA. It's your boy Brandon, DLA Alternative, and we out.